We are now joined by Mpumelelo Zikalala, a legal analyst, and he joins us now via our video link. Mr. Zikalala, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. So let's start off here. I mean, today we saw members of the EFF painting the East London Magistrates Court and surrounding areas in red. What do you make of the arguments which were presented today in the pre-sentencing of Julius Malema?
Good afternoon to you and also to your viewers. Well, he made a very good argument in terms of covering the salient points in which the court is going to look at when deciding the type of sentence that should be meted to him. Remember, the court is guided by these three things. One is the crime itself, the accused personal circumstances, and then lastly, the type of message that it wants to give out to society. Now, if you look at what the social worker was stating very carefully as to what type of individual he is, saying that look beyond the crime that is taking place now and look at Malema, the person, look at Malema, the father, look at Malema, the political icon and the person who plays a very pivotal role when it comes to our national legislature. And then secondly, when it comes to the crime itself, let's look at the extent that nobody was really injured. No one got hurt. It's just a process in which a firearm was discharged and it ends there. So he presented quite good arguments in terms of painting a picture of saying, if you want to punish me within this context, but most importantly, don't use a sledgehammer to kill a fly. Think about all those things and then give me the appropriate sentence.
And Mr. Zikalala, when you look at what the defense is asking for here, being that fine, when do we usually see a magistrate or a judge hand down a fine in a case like this one?
Well, you must also remember that within this particular matter, there might be a minimum sentence that would be applicable. But the magistrate is allowed to deviate from that minimum sentence if there are exceptional circumstances that do exist. So the exceptional circumstances would be the ones in which it were provided by Mr. Malema and his team to say, yes, here's the minimum sentence that is there, but deviate from it. So what they're basically saying here is that don't give us an imprisonment. Don't give us a suspended sentence. Just give us a fine and we'll pay the appropriate fine and end it there. Another reason why is that you must remember that if you look at Section 47 of the Constitution, if I'm not mistaken, does state you can't be a member of parliament if you've been convicted for a sentence of more than 12 months without an option of a fine. And even after you've been convicted, you must stay with a cooling off period of ±5 years. So if he does get an imprisonment, for example, or custodial sentence, it then means he's going to be out of the political game for quite a number of years. Hence why his team is emphasizing on this point to say, punish us if you need to punish us, but don't send us to jail so that you can still be eligible to run for, to be able to be a member of parliament again.
And let's come to what some of the EFF leaders have been saying, and they've been saying that this is a political case and they're fighting political matters within the courts. I mean, even the EFF deputy president went as far as even saying that. We also heard Malema also saying that that this is a political case. What do you make about those arguments?
Well, they're not going to feature much when it comes to the court because the court is very clear as to the elements that it looks at. But at the end of the day, that can't be ignored. And if there's going to be a show of force that was shown today, it does mean that it's one of the indirect arguments that are directed to the presiding officer to say, yes, there may have been a crime that has been created, but let's look at who's fueling or who's supporting these particular charges from being laid, and then let's take it from there. But with that being said, one cannot shy away or ignore the fact that there is a law that needed to be respected. There was a law that was contravened, and that particular law is very clear that punishment needs to follow. So it may have been that the individual is Mr. Malema, but at the end of the day, let's look at the merits of the matter, and if the merits warrant that a person be convicted, then so be it.
And in terms of legal processes, where do we find ourselves now? We've seen this pre-sentencing taking place, and we are expecting it to continue come the 15th of April. What else can we expect from a legal point of view?
Well, it's further evidence which is going to be adduced by both parties, and then there'll be closing arguments then. And then after those closing arguments, the presiding officer will then go and come back with the appropriate decision. But it seems to be far from over. If you look at the extent and the caliber and the quality of witnesses, especially the one that were presented today.
And what is the likelihood that we will get a final verdict or a sentencing come the end of this year?
There's a great likelihood that will happen. Remember, the year is only starting, so the latest for me might be maybe in June. That is if we're stretching it. But if you take into account that all parties in this matter would like to get this matter done and dusted as soon as possible, I don't think it's going to be an elongated wait. And the presiding officer won't take that long, unless if the presiding officer wants to go back and says, let me look at the case law. I want to make sure that I do not issue out a sentence which is too harsh. At the same time, I do not want to issue out a sentence which is too lenient, which will almost be like a slap on the wrist when a certain crime has been committed.